2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. And I think at some point, a little more than a year ago, I did a 10 facts about me video. But my style of content has changed a lot since then. Even though it's still ASMR, the type of content I make is pretty different than it was then. So I figure that I have a lot of different people watching than I did then. I have a lot of different people watching than I did then. So, in honor of that, I'm going to reintroduce myself to you guys. We're going to go over some facts about me, and this is basically just going to be a nice rambling video about myself so that you guys can get to know me if you would like to. But otherwise, you can just use this video to zone right out and go to sleep. To zone right out and go to sleep. Because I'm just going to be rambling, and the ramble is always going to be here. So you can feel welcome to close your eyes at any time. You can feel welcome to close your eyes at any time. This is also going to be my first attempt at doing like kind of this style of video, because usually I list things out and I read off of the list. But tonight I have no list. There's no list. I'm just going to see how long I can talk about myself. So that should be interesting. Like I said, I am Saslin ASMR, but you guys can call me Ash. You guys can call me Ash. Ash is something that I've been called since I was little. Since I was little, it is not short for Ashley. It is not short for Ashley. I'm very offended by that. I'm really not. It's just that, people have made that mistake my whole life. So I think it's funny. But it's actually short for Ashlyn. Ashlyn. Lyn. As a matter of fact. Lyn, as a matter of fact. So that's where Saslin obviously comes from. I am from New Mexico in the United States. I'm from the state of New Mexico. Even a lot of people in the United States always forget that New Mexico is a state. It is a state. It is a state. Born and raised here. It's on my driver's license. It is a state. And we do speak English here, as a matter of fact. I know I've met some people who don't know that New Mexico's a state, and they just automatically think that we speak Spanish here because Mexico is in the name. There is a lot of Spanish here. I would say in the more northern parts of the state, you don't really have to know Spanish to get by, because it's actually very Native American heavy in the northern part of the state. But I'm from the very southern part of the state, where it actually kind of is important that you know Spanish. I don't speak Spanish fully, but I know enough to get by. It's definitely important because I work in retail management. So it's very important that I know at least a little bit, because otherwise there are just some customers that I would never be able to get by with. There are a lot of people around here who really do expect you to have at least one Spanish-speaking employee. And I work in small box retail. I don't know how many of you even know what that means, but I work in small box retail. So I have a very small team. My team is only 7 people. So with only 7 people, I think I have one person who speaks Spanish fully, and then I speak it a little bit, so that's 2. So it's really hard Spanish speaker on the clock all the time, and I really do feel bad about that sometimes. But anyway, yeah, I'm from southern New Mexico, so I am from pretty close to the border, as a matter of fact. I'm 23 years old. I'm 23 years old, born in 2003. I've seen recently those birthday cakes where they say 2003 and then they take out the 2 zeros and it says 23. And I cannot believe I missed doing that with my birthday cake. I'm literally lime green jealous. My husband had never heard that phrase before when he met me, but I got it from my uncles growing up. It basically just means that you're so jealous you can feel it in your chest, you know what I mean? You're lime green jealous. I'm lime green jealous. I can't help myself. But yeah, I turned 23 on the 27th of June. I turned 23 on the 27th of June. That does make me a June Cancer as my zodiac sign. That does make me a June Cancer as a zodiac sign. But fun fact, I have 3. Like if you look at my whole birth chart together, I have 3 Geminis in my chart. I have 3 Geminis in my chart. And my dad is also a Gemini. So, I don't know. You can interpret what that means for yourself. I don't really know what it means for me, as a matter of fact. I do consider myself to be a very emotional person, which is something that's generally associated with cancers, and especially June cancers. But I don't really know that I believe in the zodiac or like anything like that. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I don't know, I'm just not. I don't know. So, I don't really know in depth what the other things mean. So you can tell me what you think it means. I did grow up religious. I grew up in the Church of Christ. I don't know if any of you have experience with the Church of Christ, but it's kind of wild. Church of Christ is technically non-denominational, so there's not like strict rules of like, oh, if you have a Church of Christ, then you have to believe in this, 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 and this. But they are all generally similar, I would think. But in my church, they didn't believe in instruments inside the church building, so we had to sing completely a cappella, no instruments, because they don't believe in that. They believe in instruments outside the church, but the church is too sacred for instruments. There's a lot of other weird things, in my opinion, that they believe, but I am not part of that religion anymore. My mother still is. I generally consider myself to be an atheist. I came out as an atheist when I was 14, so it's been about 9 years since I believed in anything, and I honestly find it comforting right where I'm at. The idea of the big sleep is not scary for me. You know, it's very peaceful. But I'm trying not to get too deep into topics. Sorry, I'm just like rambling, so I'm kind of leading myself deeper. But I am going to try to switch to a lighter topic. On lighter topics, I definitely am alt. As you can tell, my style is not exactly cookie cutter average, you know. I dye my hair black. I have multiple tattoos and multiple facial piercings. As a matter of fact, those of you who are used to looking at my face might notice this. I just gauged up my septum earlier today. I went from a 14 gauge to a 12 gauge, and it was painful. 16 to 14 was not painful, but 14 to 12 was painful. And if you guys are not familiar with how gauges work, the lower obviously alternative, but I don't really consider myself to fall into any of the typical genres. I do listen to metal. Um, I like Slipknot. I like Electric Callboy. I like. Oh, there's another band that I like, but I'm really not sure that I can say their name on here because it's kind of gruesome. So I'm not gonna say it. But for any of you metalheads out there, you may be able to interpret it. They have two female lead singers, or screamers, I guess you'd call them. And a name that I can't say on YouTube. But anyway, I do like metal music, but I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a metalhead. I don't spike my hair. I don't wear the white base trad goth makeup. I don't really consider myself to be fully goth either. A lot of people in my life consider me goth because they don't really know any better. That's kind of just the only version of alternative that they know. So that's what they call me. But I don't actually listen to anything that's really considered goth music. I actually can't even really think of any traditional goth bands off the top of my head. There's one that's really popular and I can think of their logo, but Misfits. Misfits is the band I'm trying to think of. Like, I don't listen to them. There's just like a lot. I don't listen to the right music to be goth. Punk. I also listen to a lot of music that could be considered punk. I like Green Day. I like 3 Days Grace. I like bands that have punk ideologies. A lot of young, rebellious, liberal ideologies. I am a Democrat, if that matters to you. So, I like a lot of punk bands with rebellious ideologies, but not a ton. I really mostly like the mainstream ones. I'm not super into anything like niche, so that's why I wouldn't consider myself punk, is because I don't feel like I know the niche stuff to be considered a punk. Emo. Spotify considers me an emo. My Spotify rap definitely calls me an emo. I listen to a lot of Midwest emo, I guess you could call it. But again, I don't really consider myself emo because I never fit into that subgenre. I've never had the swoop bangs. I've never been into posting my depression on Snapchat. I don't know why. I feel like that's like the emo stereotype. I'm sorry if you're emo. I'm sorry to all the emos. My apologies. But yeah, I just don't really feel like I fit into that either. And then I do also like some scene bands. I'll listen to Jeffree Star's music. I listen to a ton of Panic at the Disco. Actually, as a matter of fact, that's another good fact about me. My favorite band is Panic at the Disco. My favorite band. I know, okay, I was gonna just jump right out and say it, but for context, those of you who don't know, Panic at the Disco is a band. Their lead singer's name is Brendan Urie. Girl, I know Brendan Urie's middle name. It's Boyd. Brendan Boyd Urie. I am obsessed with Panic at the Disco. As a matter of fact, I am always in their top 0.01% of listeners on Spotify. And I have done the math with their monthly listener count and doing what 0.01% of that is, and it's about 800 people. So every year I'm in the top 800 of their listeners or so, and they have a ton of listeners. They are a pretty popular band, especially with their more pop albums that they came out with towards the end of their career. But that's not really what I'm into. I'm more into A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, and Pretty Odd, things like that. Some of my other favorite albums: American Idiot, Green Day. I love American Idiot. I the title track of the album is my favorite. But Jesus of Suburbia is a close second. I also really love Jesus of Suburbia. That's another one of my favorite songs. But my favorite song, period, my favorite song ever, is Take Me Away by Christina Vidal. Take Me Away by Christina Vidal. You can't find it on Spotify because Miss Christina has erased herself from the internet. And it hurts me every time. And it hurts me every time. But I love her so much. And I have it's from the movie Freaky Friday. If any of you have ever seen the movie Freaky Friday with Lindsay Lohan, that is my favorite movie. And the song is from the movie. But I have the soundtrack to the movie on CD so that I can listen to it in my truck because I'm in love with it. That's another fun fact about me, though, is my truck. I drive a 2003 truck. Same year I was born. I refuse to get a new car because it's just so me. My truck was manufactured in June 2003, just like I was. We're twins, and I love her. And I'm also just super into 90s and 2000s things. Like, barely any of the music or movies that I like are from past the early 2000s. Once you get into like the 2010s and stuff like that, it really just all phases out for me, which is funny because I wasn't even born in the 90s. But my mom was really goth when I was younger, and I don't know if you guys know anything about being alternative in the early 2000s, but if you wanted to be alternative in the like 90s, early 2000s, my mom graduated high school in the year 2000, okay? If you wanted to be any type of alternative back then, you had to commit, because back then they really cared about posers, and like who was a poser and who was doing it right and who was doing it wrong. And I feel like we're much more accepting now than we were then. But back then, my mom couldn't be a poser. If she was going to be goth, she had to really be goth. So my mom raised me extremely goth. She raised me extremely goth. In her own words, she raised me headbanging in the back of my car seat. In my back seat car seat. If you guys are not familiar with rock music and you don't know what headbanging is, it's that motion you see people do in rock music videos where they like throw their hair back and forth, where they like bob their head up and down really hard. That's what it's called. So I grew up on rock music. It's always been my thing. And that's kind of like, I grew up going to church with my grandma. My mom wasn't really religious at that time because she was very goth. But then as I got older, my mom became very religious and started going to church with us. And there was something about my mom doing it that just turned me off. Turned me off of it. Because I saw what it did to her. And I didn't like that. And I decided that that wasn't what I wanted for myself. And that there is better out there. And I do truly believe that there is better out there. Sorry. I'm getting too deep again. Redirecting. I'm getting too deep again, so I'm redirecting. Let's see. What should I redirect to? What do you guys want to know about me? What do you guys want to know about me? We brought up movies earlier. I am extremely into B movies. If you don't know what that is basically a low-budget film that is not like what you would consider a Hollywood made. B movies are generally made by anyone who wants to make a film. And so they generally focus on much crazier ideas and plots that you And that is one of my favorite things to do in life. So I will watch any amount of B movies it takes to have good conversation. And I have seen some crazy ones. I've seen some crazy ones. I've seen Ouija Shark. I've seen Rectuma. I've seen Birdemic. I've seen Champagne and Bullets. I've seen I Was a Teenage Wereskunk. I've seen a lot of crazy stuff. And if you guys would like me to, one day I will rank them. Because I do love to watch them with my husband and my sister and her boyfriend. We love to watch them together as a group. So I was thinking that we could do a ranking for you as a group and then I could present it to you. I do have a fiance. Sometimes I call him my husband, but he's technically my fiance. His name is Skylar, and I have done a video with him before. It's called ASMR on My Boyfriend. We've been together for 7 years. We got together when I was 16 and he was 18, but we were still in high school together. We were both juniors in high school together. He graduated a year late, and I graduated a year early. So we did graduate in the same class together. And here's another great fact about me. This is my cat. Say hello, Fork. Say hello. This is my cat, Fork. Fork, like the utensil. Fork. Fork. Fork, fun fact, was actually born on the bottom shelf of the shelf. Fork's mother went into labor, hiding in the bottom shelf of that bookshelf. As a matter of fact, Fork's mother's name is Slim Shady. Slim Shady. I do like Eminem a little bit. The only song I have on my playlist by him is The Real Slim Shady. If I'm gonna listen to a white man rap, my preferred vibe is more like All in the Family by Korn, which is one of my favorite songs, by the way. That is an insane song, but it's one of my favorites. Also, if we're going to talk about white people rap, I have the number 31 tattooed on my side because of the song the song Pretty Fly for a White Guy by Offspring. The song Pretty Fly for a White Guy by Offspring. In the song, they say he asked for a 13, but he got a 31. So I got a 31. All of my tattoos are done by a friend of mine. And I do have some glow-in-the-dark tattoos. My cow and my lighter glow, and then the masks and the potion bottle also glow. So the front of each arm and the front of each leg glows in the dark. And I love that for me. I'm also really into the game Minecraft. I really like Minecraft. I am a keep inventory kind of girl. I've also been playing it since I was, oh my gosh, like 9 years old. I remember when the first version of Minecraft came out. I was obsessed with it, but I've never beat the game. I've just never had any desire to beat the Ender Dragon. Just absolutely not my vibe. I prefer to just survive in like a little cottagecore type of living situation. That's very much my Minecraft vibe. As for my style with things though, you might notice this t-shirt has the collar cut off of it. That's another just kind of part of my alt style. I very much like t-shirts with the collars cut off. I don't know if any of you have ever watched Marina Jones or Elvis Lover on TikTok, but she wears wears most of her shirts like this, and I just think that she's an icon. I did do this to a couple of my shirts before I ever started watching her videos, but she absolutely inspired me to do it more often. Sorry, ow, I just got bit. That was great, that was wonderful. Sorry, I'm being too playful with the cat. The cat doesn't think I'm trying to pet anymore, the cat thinks I'm trying to play. And we can't have that, we can't have that. We can't have that, we can't have that. Let's see. What's another good fact about me? I feel like another weird fact about me is that I've been hit by a truck. But I'm obviously fine. So, that was just an experience that I had. I was also fine at the time, by the way. I only spent a wee bit of time in an ambulance, just a little wee bit of time in an ambulance. I was like 12. At that point, you're still like growing, so like pretty much anything can heal, for real. Unless you're like injured really bad, like you can heal pretty much anything at that age, I feel like. I did. I did. I got healed. Good for me. Usually I tell the whole story as like a fun party thing, but I don't feel like the whole story is very relaxing. If you guys comment you want me to tell the whole story, I will. But otherwise we'll just leave it at that. Let's see. I'm not wearing makeup in this video, but if you watch my other videos, you can see that I am very into makeup. I've been doing makeup for a very long time because I got into dance when I was 2. And I danced for 12 years until I was 14 years old. And I did end up dropping out for personal reasons. But during that 12 years, I did compete several times. I was a competitive dancer. And so since I was in dance since 2 years old, I don't even remember the first time I picked up a makeup brush. I must have been so little. Back then. But I am very good at it now. I do these big winged eyeliner looks, but one of my main things is that I'm very good with gems and gem design, so I like to glue little sparkles and things all over my face. That's very fun for me. And I can do designs with it and stuff. My husband and I love to go to Renaissance festivals. That's a big thing for me. If you watch my TikTok, I do a lot of Renaissance festival fit checks. So for Renaissance festivals, I have used my makeup skills to do all kinds of costumes. I've been a mermaid with barnacle pearls growing out of my face. I've been an angel with a third eye growing out of my forehead. I've done lots of things. And my husband actually wants to start a business making earrings and wooden children's weapons, like sparring weapons, that are just, for playing with or for training with. Because he's extremely good at woodworking. And if he is able to get that kind of business up and running, then eventually our dream is to travel with Renaissance festivals and make money selling his wares at Renaissance festivals so that we can afford to travel and see the rest of America. That would be absolutely amazing. That is my dream. And really, at this point, anything to get out of retail management, right? I feel like everybody's always saying that, but, and I really love my team. My team and I have been together 2 years, and they're really great, and I hired most of them because they were my friends to begin with, so it's really not the people I work with, it's just the job, But I would absolutely love to be able to travel with Renaissance festivals and just sell my husband's wares for a living. Currently, I am a husband is a housewife, or we call it a house husband. But I really prefer it that way because even though I grew up in the church, I don't really want to get into the specifics of why, just because I feel like it's not very relaxing to talk about on here. But I was never taught to cook and clean, really, like the other girls were. So I'm bad at it. Let's just be honest, I'm bad at it. And I really do not like to do my own cooking and cleaning and laundry and that kind of thing. So it just works out better for my fiance and I that I work and make the money and he does all the household chores, because he can run a household way better than I can run a household. And he also has time to, make little things that also make us money sometimes. So that's fun. Yeah. If there's anything else that you guys want to know about me, just let me know down in the comments. I hope you have a great night, and I hope you enjoyed this video with the microphone. Don't forget to like and subscribe.